Christian Bale is getting hip surgery for carrying Thor 4 on his back. Here with us, we have Eduardo Organista from SearchLight Pictures, Matt Coulter from NIC Partners INC. We're going to review the movie, analyze it, and talk about it. We're going to first start by rating it. So on a scale of 0 to 10, what do you all give it? 0, one of the worst movies you've ever seen. 10, one of the best movies you've ever seen. And 5, average. So take a few seconds and pick yours. Come on.
I already decided. We talked about this last time in the preview. We decided it was going to be either a 6 or a 7 out of 10. There's no way it can be a 4, and there's just no way it's going to get an 8 or a 9 score. And they were right, and we were right. I believe it came in at a solid 6.8. I couldn't give it a full 7, and I refused to give it anything less than a 6. The movie did its job. It was campy. It was action-packed. There was a rancher rock. Yes, a fair scene. I don't feel like there was a lot of tension. I didn't feel like everything was really in that much danger. I mean, he's Thor, so that really hasn't changed. But I mean, I felt like Gore was a threat. I felt like he was properly approached. I feel like people who underestimated him got goofed on. I mean, a solid 6.8. I'm not mad.
Eddie, go ahead.
I agree with everything you just said. I'm more inclined to. I was kind of going back and forth, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a 7, even though I have a lot of issues with the film. Definitely tension being one of them. I think Christian Bale was one of the best parts of it, as you just mentioned, and the utilization could have definitely been more with him because he is such a phenomenal performer, phenomenal actor. Just it's hard to watch a movie not be captivated by him.
Yes, agreed.
And kind of with everything else just being irrelevant, it's just if you see him in a movie, you're gonna be captivated by his performance one way or the other. I think that's my take on it. But yeah. I'm
giving it a 6. I feel like there was a lot of unnecessary scenes. Chris Pratt on the Guardians of the Galaxy part was unnecessary. Like they didn't even have to go with them. It took a long time for the inciting incident to happen, because if you think about it, the inciting incident is basically when the God Butcher attacked New Asgard. That's where like the plot begins. Like everything before that wasn't really adding. There wasn't a lot of tension, and I definitely agree Christian Bale should have been used a lot more. And when they were talking about how the movie was originally 4 hours and then it was cut, it was clear that there was no smoothness in the transition. It was like very episodic. Things just happening, and you just have to connect the dots. So it didn't make any sense. The fight scene could have been better. I think the best part was the fight scene for me.
Yeah, it
could have been better, but I think they had the same problem they had with the Obi-Wan fight scene with Darth Vader at the end. They were kind of intercutting it with the kids, I think, and other things.
I actually really liked the last fight scene with the children. I feel like this movie, especially with Christian Bale, they could have gone very, very serious. It could have gone down the Infinity War Endgame path where everything is super dramatic and super serious, and there's no jokes to be had because it's Gore the God Butcher, and they could have done that with Christian Bale. He has the ability, and he was just crazy enough already. Like if he would have taken it serious and they would have made the movie serious, it still would have been fun. It probably would have been better, to be honest. But they went campy. Taika is a phenomenal director. I appreciate the direction he went with this, and he made it comedic. Even Gore is as raw as the character is, and as raw as the actor is, like was still kind of funny sometimes. In that you knew Thor was going to triumph. Like the fight scene with the children at the end. It doesn't matter that he gave them his powers in this once. He's never going to do this again, mind you. I guarantee you, mark my words, he will never once be able to just hand off his powers again. It was done for this one little movie, for these children to do it, and for that scene, so kids could goof on a bunch of shadow monsters. And I mean, it was just solid. It was just funny to me. I agree. There's the tension. There's not a lot of tension. How can there be? It's Thor. There's no way he's going to take harm. Even the mighty Thor already had cancer. That's how she lost. She had cancer before. So it's whatever.
Yeah. No, I actually really enjoyed the fight scenes. Because I knew what I was getting into. I'm not trying. I'm not here for them to reinvent the wheel on Marvel cinematic fight scenes, I guess you can say. And then having the kids involved, I thought that was pretty cool. And then one thing that was interesting is that Thor can be very dramatic. It can be like I would argue we've seen him, struggle. Like I think one of the struggles was which one was it? Was it in Avengers where he, like, one of my favorite scenes is him feeling worthy again, when he got the hammer from the past, when he was visiting his mom. Which movie was that one?
Endgame.
That was Endgame.
Endgame. There we go. You know,
when he was really, really big and fat, and then he started.
Exactly. Basically. And I really, really love that Thor because there was a lot of like more nuance to him. And Chris Hemsworth, I mean, I know his roles don't always portray this, but he's a brilliant actor. I would argue he's a great actor. Sometimes just the roles don't always bring that out of him as much. But so going from that depressed Thor and all that stuff, like to this kind of revitalized Thor was fine to see. It was fun, but at the same time, I wish there was some more nuance to his performances because, like, Thor, it just seems very kind of carefree all the time, and you hear he has his love of his life dying of cancer, and look, I'm all for always being hopeful and stuff like that, and always being optimistic, but the whole reason Thor was interesting is because he's a god who we humanize, he's like literally was brought down to earth, and so I was a little bit disappointed that the Taika went a little bit more like I don't mind the comedic bits, I really don't. It just needs to be balanced out by a dramatic foundation, I think. And I get that it's a Marvel film, and I get that this is made for a specific audience, but I think the audience would appreciate maybe some of those dramatic undertones to help complement those overt comedic overtones, and because the writing is good. It's just it just when you don't have the tension, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to kind of keep it all together when it's constantly all about hilarity and the stakes don't feel as real. So that was my one thing when it comes to the tension, and then also what I feel Thor could have, as far as performance wise, or the character, I guess, should have been a little bit more nuanced, I would say.
Ray, hit us with this. Tell us your favorite scene, my man. Tell us your favorite unnecessary scene.
Favorite unnecessary scene?
Yeah.
I would definitely think that the Guardians of the Galaxy part was so unnecessary. It didn't add anything. What's happening? You're just showing me like Thor coming for the rescue and Chris Pratt be like, oh no, I'm gonna leave you, my best friend. Is like, okay, like this is just too much comedy. Like this is something you'd watch if it's like a sitcom, it's like a 20-minute thing. You're just sitting and relaxing, but this is not something you put like right before the whole world is gonna die. I wasn't buying this anything. But in reference to what Eddie said about, okay, you're doing this for a specific audience, but then again, if you're talking about a specific audience, why would you show a butt scene in the movie? Why would you put? Why? I would assume there's a lot of legal battle right now, whether it's going to be PG-13 or R-rated. If you wanted the movie to be PG-13 and you did all this comedy because you want it to be PG-13 because you're doing it for the kids, right? So why did you go like that with the butt scene and some cuss words and a lot of blood? Was it his butt or was it the stand-in? I think
it was definitely his butt. He for sure. They had to pay him for that butt.
No way.
You got to pay for that butt.
I thought it was a stand-in, to be honest.
Did you see how massive he was in that shot? Did you not see, like, as soon as he got like regular clothes, and then as soon as he got his clothes whipped off, he was like this, and I was like, they are just CGIing him. He looks like a Dragon Ball Z character. He looked unrealistic, and I was like, this is crazy. And as soon as they put the clothes back on him, he got like right back to regular size, which is still huge. Chris Hemsworth is a big man and a muscular beast, so like not to take away from him, but like clearly CGI'd. To just make him look like a superhero straight out of the comics.
I think now I remember the main unnecessary scene was again right before the inciting incident. Like the inciting incident took too long. It was when they were doing this flashback about Jane Foster and all of that. It took too long. It was a long, boring voiceover. I had to check my phone. So what did you think of it?
Wow. Actually, I thought it was pretty quick in the total time, just because they didn't. fans always want so much context. They want this backstory delivered to them. Oh, give us a Jane Foster Mighty Thor prequel movie. No. Here's 5 minutes. Psh, there's your origin story. We got the movie to go. And I think, and we'll get into this, I think, a little later, but like that's that suspension of belief we as Marvel cinematic viewers have to go ahead and get a hold of. They've been doing this for a decade. They don't need to have an origin story every time. Here's a superhero. Here they have powers. I'm cool. I'm cool with it. That's what I expect you to do now. I don't have time for you to give me a 2-hour backstory every time you want to introduce a new character. Drop mommy, tell me their powers, and let them do their thing. I'm cool. I'm cool with it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. I didn't have a problem with the whole butt scene. I feel like if I was 12, 13, or 14, I'd be laughing. I don't think I'd be. It's a thing about like you got to know yourself as a kid and realize what made you laugh and what made you kind of like. You're not gonna look at that butt and be like, "Oh my god, that's gross." They'll probably cover their eyes and kind of giggle and laugh because it's funny. It's a butt. I mean, you know, it's like my daughter. She just laughs whenever she hears the word butt because she knows what a butt is, you know. But she just laughs.
That's funny.
It's like a trigger word for her, so it's ridiculous. But yeah, I personally don't have a problem with it. I do know that there is a somewhat of a double standard that can be spoken to, obviously,
of course.
You know, because if that was, you know, a woman, that would not really play out well. But then on the flip side of that, I think maybe this is controversial in a sense, but on the flip side of that, it's like, yeah, okay, you know what? The scene called for it because you know Zeus is kind of that person, and then also, you know, it's like objectifying the male body. Sure, why not? You know, and you know everybody was on board with it. It's not. I don't feel like it was a throwaway per se. I think you could have gone away with him just not even showing it. Sure. Yeah. But at the same time, it is. I feel like there is a balance that needs to be struck, and I think you should take risk. And you know, I am very aware of the double standard, obviously, but I don't think that wasn't really at the top of my head. I just kind of thought about it sometime after. I'm like, oh yeah, like yeah. I mean, this is fine because the dude, you know. But I'm pretty sure, you know, if this was a woman, you know, it'd be a different kind of scenario. Which is why I guess doesn't happen because I think it's like, you know, when a dude's, it's kind of like a weird archaic sort of attitude of what we have of the male body, and like, you know, we always like to try to quote unquote protect the female body, and it's just like, well, they're both bodies, like we just need to kind of make sure that we keep them in equal footing as far as like how they're represented, no matter how you look. But obviously I'm treading water here, but I'm just basically I don't feel like it was a problem for me personally. I think it's a very I thought it was very funny. I watched it with my mom. She was just laughing hysterically, you know. And she loves Thor. She has a huge crush on Chris Hemsworth, so I'm pretty sure she enjoyed that. And I know she didn't have a problem with it. So you know, there's mothers for you.
It's good you mentioned Zeus, because I want to talk about Zeus, but just quickly response about the Jane Foster thing. In movies, you can get away with long monologues and exposition and flashback and all that at the beginning. But if you've already spent 20 minutes, 25 minutes making introductions, and you still haven't reached the inciting incident, and you want to spend a long monologue explaining to me how Jane Foster, because as a viewer, you reach a point where like, okay, I'm waiting for this inciting moment, the trigger that's gonna make me want to watch the movie, right? Every minute you postpone this, you're getting the audience out of it. So that's how kind of I felt about it. But speaking of Zeus, what do y'all think of Russel Crowe? Like, I wasn't able to understand most of what he said. What is that, like Greek? Was it like Greek, Turkish, Arabic accent?
Yeah, that was happened. It was like a conglomeration of like 3 different accents from like the southwestern steppe of Europe, and I have no idea where they got that from. It was clean though. I mean, I didn't understand him either, but I think that was kind of the point. Like they had Zeus as kind of like this wacky, like when he came down the steps and he flipped his little skirt up, and then he was trampled down, and then he like kicks his legs up to walk up on Thor. Like that's all comic, like that's all funny, and I'm glad they did that, because they could have had Zeus be like canon mythological Zeus, who is a sexual deviant and a murderer of his own children, and like, we don't want that guy on here. I think it was funny that he did whip Thor's clothes off, and then he went to look at Valkyrie and Jane, and he was like, I'm gonna whip they all. No, we're good. Yeah, that was because he would definitely be like, you're naked too, and now you're naked. In fact, I'm naked, and now it's an orgy, because that's what the whole point was, to trick them.
It's so funny you bring that up, because if you look at Greek and obviously Roman history, they're very, very nonchalant about nudity, you know.
Yes.
And I think it's, now I'm thinking about it, it totally fits that sort of you know, mythology and history and stuff like that when it comes to the Greeks. But I didn't have a problem with his accent. I know that Taika shot all of his scenes twice, one with a Greek accent and then one with his normal British accent. I guess he's Australian or New Zealand, but they shot it with a British accent and a Greek accent, and he went with the Greek accent because it was funnier, the way it's like, the way he was portrayed, because obviously Zeus is kind of a character that is in real mythology a very, very troubling figure. So
very controversial.
Yeah, very controversial figure. And so so I didn't have a problem. I love Russel Crowe and his performances. He's another phenomenal actor. And it's just so crazy that we had a movie with Russel Crowe and Christian Bale ever since like 3:10 to Yuma, you know, when they were both in that wonderful film. But like, that's a treat to have. I just wish there was a little bit maybe more. I almost wanted like maybe Zeus and
Gore.
Just kind of meet, and you know, maybe have a little something. I mean, I know they're both kind of, I mean, Gore is definitely villainous, but I know Zeus is essentially towing the line with villainy, obviously. That would have been very interesting. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Russell Crowe's scene. I mean, it's hard not to.
I think is when I first saw Christian Bale, the way he was portrayed and makeup and paint and all of that really reminded me of Kratos from God of War. I don't know if you all played it. There was definitely an influence from that. So when I was thinking of Zeus, I was kind of thinking of the Zeus they had in the game, because I thought they were gonna like base it on him. And Zeus in the game, you know him, is like very serious. It's not like these jokes all the time. So kind of like when I saw Russell Crowe being all that funny, all that childish Zeus, I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that at all. But yeah, I definitely think there was some influence from the God of War game. It was definitely one of my favorites ever. I only bought the PS3 because I wanted to play the third game. That was it. I played the third game and I never played PlayStation ever since.
That's so sad. That's a beautiful and sad story all at once. One of the things I have noticed about these movies is that we started out in this phase one with individual characters in their own worlds, Iron Man and Captain America and Hulk, and then you have like Doctor Strange and whatnot. Then you introduce all these characters and you bring them all together. You know what I'm saying? In phase two, we introduce the Avengers assemble. We have Ultron, and then you have like the phase three, which is Thanos and like Endgame, Infinity War. These situations where they're not only using the quantum realm for time travel, but also like fighting world-ending level threats like Thanos. But then now we have phase four, where the group, the ensemble has split back apart, but instead of going back to the individual stories, they're like linking up. So like we have Thor with Guardians of the Galaxy at first, and now they're separate. But we also have Thor with Valkyrie, and Thor with Mighty Thor, but then they separate. And then you're gonna have you have Doctor Strange who met up with Wanda right here, and saying in Multiverse of Madness. But now Doctor Strange with his third eye is going off to do some intergalactic or interdimensional contestants with whoever that lady was he went with. It's just interesting to see what phase four is going to be, what phase five is going to be, because phase four is really like kind of like phase one. It's just a setup. It's preparing you, and it's interconnecting all these characters. They're all doing their own thing, but the worlds are interconnected. And so like if you have Ant-Man and you bring up anybody relating to quantum fields, you might have an Ant-Man in your movie. If you bring up someone fighting the Celestials, you might have a Guardians of the Galaxies in your film. You know what I'm saying? I'm interested to see where these connections are going to go, especially in phase five. We know that Kang the Conqueror is supposed to be the next biggest bad, and they told us in Loki, which is beautiful. They told us so much in Loki. They told us so much in Loki. It's insane. They told us about the timeline diverging off. They told us about Kang the Conqueror coming, and like when you look at characters like Scarlet Witch, who, if you haven't gathered this yet, could solo the Avengers. Scarlet Witch in Civil War was not the same character. Scarlet Witch in Multiverse of Madness is the problem. It is a menace. She wiped out Professor X and Reed Richards and Captain Marvel, who is by the way, also an Avengers level threat. So like, understand how powerful she is, but she's not multiversal. Scarlet Witch can't go and wipe out your whole universe and move on to the next one and move on to the next one. Dormammu could. Dormammu has his own dimension. And so he can collect them, and so can Kang the Conqueror. So I'm excited to see where these escalations go. When you're writing stuff like this, especially in comic books or anime, you have power scaling, and you have to make it consistent because it's going to escalate. Think of how powerful Thanos is. Okay, you think they can introduce a villain as not as powerful as Thanos? Of course not. You don't think Gore the God Butcher could kill Thanos with the Necro Sword? Of course. He's not stopping that. It took multiple gods to kill this guy, and he actually didn't lose. If you know, he won. He did get to the eternity. He won. He just made the right wish, because at the end of the day, he wanted to save his daughter. I think these escalating levels are interesting, because it's going to be interesting to see which heroes they have fight these big bads and who's really going to set the stage to prepare them.
I really hope that one day, maybe I should write this. I don't know. I really hope that that one day we get with we see Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is an Omega level mutant.
Yes.
Obviously the son of Reed Richards and
Invisible Woman.
Yes, thank you.
Susan
and
Storm.
So Franklin Richards is a beast. There's different iterations of him, and I'd be very excited to see an iteration of him, because he's one of the few people that can take Wanda for a run for her money.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's a guy who can literally create his own pocket universe. It's crazy. Maybe that's a little too OP. Maybe that's why nothing's happened, but you never know.
Yet.
There's different ways to do it. What do you guys think of the post-credit scenes? I'm curious. I mean, it just wasn't like. I'm curious to know what you guys thought about the post-credit scenes.
I liked the Hercules scene. It gave an extra dimension to Zeus, because I told you at the beginning I thought he was just like this shallow. I didn't like this character too much. I like this extra dimension with the girl. I felt that the first thing that popped into my mind was like, okay, we're gonna see her later. She's gonna be a new Avenger. All of that. I was like, okay, this girl the actress just set up her whole career just based on these few scenes she worked with. I was like, wow, it's so interesting how some people get it. Like, I don't want to say the easy way, but the quick way and the simple way. So I just thought about it like this. And I saw a comment saying that Thor will return, that Chris Hemsworth and Taika Waititi didn't know about it. They just got surprised when it showed up in this, up on screen when they were watching it. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Things happen.
Producers are like, put that in. They don't need to know, put it in.
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
I thought, I'm actually excited to see what Hercules does, because Hercules in the Marvel comics is very close to what Thor can do. I mean, these guys travel at light speed. They can crack planets with their punches. They have all sorts of crazy weapons and tools. And Hercules, especially with all the gifts he has from all his trials that he's done, the wolf's head or the lion's head and the pelt and stuff like that, or some rope, or the sword. Like, there's all sorts of weapons he has that he's collected from his tasks. So it's interesting to see like what kind of threat he'll be to Thor. But again, Thor doesn't just fight villains. Thor fights incredibly powerful villains, and the goal is ultimately a learning process. Thor is developing. Thor has grown. You've watched Thor go through his cocky, arrogant frat boy Asgardian phase, to a love-struck dummy, to someone who's been heartbroken and lost his brother 3 times in a row, to like someone who loses entire people and gains a bunch of weight and is having a bunch of is super depressed, who's now on his recovery reconciliation mission, who also just lost the love of his life to cancer. So also terrible. He just can't catch a dub. As for Jane going to Valhalla, I mean, fine. That's perfect. You know what they did for us there? They said, we're done. It's it. They're in heaven. We're good. Thank you, Heimdall. Thank you, Jane Foster. I'm surprised they didn't poke Loki in there, but Obviously, they weren't going to.
Yeah.
Obviously, they weren't going to. Loki, I don't even think Loki would be able to go to. Oh, he did die fighting Thanos. So I mean, by the rules, he should be in Valhalla out there somewhere. One of the variant Lokis is in Valhalla. Oh God.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie, do you want to add something?
No, I was just gonna say, isn't the girl in the movie, isn't that Chris Hemsworth's daughter?
Yes, it's her daughter. Her name is
Okay.
India Rose. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So that was, I thought that was really sweet, and you can tell the chemistry right away. Obviously, it's like, I'm like, oh, she's so good. I'm like, oh wait, I mean, maybe she is good by itself, but it does help to have
your dad right there.
Bounce. Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask you guys, what did y'all think about the most important actor and character in the movie, which was Matt Damon's?
Oh my God, that was a treat. That was a treat. I mean, it's just I love that. It's just like, that's a running joke. That's, why not? I would totally have Matt Damon. Like, why not?
Why not? I think that's like a prime example of why this movie is a 6.8 and not like a 5 to me, is because sometimes the jokes are like, okay, we get it, here's some jokes. But sometimes I'm like, oh God, they got Matt Damon doing a play of this tragedy. They walk in, he's like, all right, we need to make a play about this right now. And she's like, no. He's like, I didn't hear no. He's like, you didn't. Here we are. We open on it, and they just start going into it. And I was like, dude, that's perfect. That's it. It's just funny. That's comedy. Seeing Thor and Jane awkwardly bump around each other, even though they act like they're high school kids who had a summer camp crush together, and now they're back in math class together. You are gods. Talk to communicate. What's wrong with them? I don't know. The movie was pretty good. Overall, it was pretty funny. I thought stuff like that's why it was so funny. Even the kids fighting, I thought was like, that's kind of goofy. She was holding the bunny up, blasting laser eye beams and all the demons.
But the thing is,
hilarious.
When you have all these kids fighting, like, at least one of them is gonna die. Come on, you had to kill one of them.
There was no way they were gonna kill a kid in a PG-13 movie. They didn't have it in them, and
true.
I'm glad they did. Now, if it was a Spider-Man movie or something,
or unless you're Anakin.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh no, please.
My whole issue with the Matt Damon thing is that you lost him as a potential main character in the Marvel universe, because they're recruiting all the famous actors right now, right? Like, you're gonna run out of actors at some point. So
Matt Damon's man. He's expensive.
Matt Damon's smart. Instead of getting a character role who potentially might get updated or killed off, he's immortal. He's the Stan Lee role now. They should have put Matt Damon in the Hawkeye play. That's where he should have been. He should have been there. That could have been like, oh, this guy is all over the place. What is he doing?
I just have one comment. When Spider-Man happened, everyone was like, oh, I'm excited for Doctor Strange. And when I saw Doctor Strange, I was like, okay, that's a bummer. And now when Thor ends it, like, oh, I'm excited for Hercules and all of that. Like, y'all need to stop getting excited about the Marvel universe. Like, okay, it's cool. We watch it. We like it. We enjoy it. But just like, enough with all this extra excitement. Like, again, we spoke about it last week. They don't give us the best movies. I like the series, but put the series aside. I'm talking about the movies now. I'm excited. You also need to stop being excited. Like, it's just like something you go watch on a weekend, enjoy it for 2 hours, talk with people. Like, I kind of noticed for this movie, for example, specifically, you notice how there's this correlation between how good a movie is and how much people will end up spoiling it. Like, the better the movie, the less people will talk about it later because they don't want to spoil it. So on Thursday, the moment it got released, people would start posting stuff and spoiling the hell out of it on the internet. I was like, what y'all doing?
Instantly.
What y'all doing? I was like, okay, it wasn't the best. But when you look at Mandalorian, for example, it's not that Mandalorian they didn't say anything. They just didn't talk about it. It was complete silence, just waiting for everyone to watch it and no spoilers to happen. So I kind of noticed this correlation, and it kind of made sense. Like, this movie wasn't the best, so they were spoiling it right from the beginning.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I do notice there's a lot of spoiling that happens with these Marvel movies that drop. And I think that's because of the excitement of it. Like, people get excited about these films and these shows. I get excited because I know what I'm getting. We talked about this last time. I was like, this can't be more than a 7. It's not gonna be less than a 6. And when I went into it, I knew what I was expecting. I can be excited for it because my expectations are tempered to the quality of these films. If I go into these films and I'm expecting an Oscar, I'm going to be disappointed every time. If you go to any Marvel movie and you think you're going to watch Infinity War or Endgame, you're going to have a bad time. you're not going to have fun because it's not going to be that until it is. Oh, until it is. But until that time, like you said, kick back, watch on the weekend, take a date, and be cool about it with your friends afterwards. That's exactly what these movies should be, especially movies like this, especially a Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Agreed.
Okay, Eddie, you can go with your last comment, and then Mac, you can talk about the suspension of disbelief, and that would be it.
Yeah.
No, that's I just enjoyed it for what it was. I wasn't expecting very much in terms of being blown away, and I just love watching Thor movies. Honestly, I think they're a lot of fun ultimately. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did, and I'm glad I got to watch it.
Yeah, regarding the suspension of disbelief, we're in phase 4 of Marvel movies. They've been doing this for over a decade now. We don't need origin stories every single time. I don't need a blueprint of how every single person's powers works. I don't need to know who this person's father was. It doesn't matter. What does matter is what story are you delivering on the screen in that 2-hour, 2.5-hour time frame. And I mean, they do a pretty good job of it. These Marvel movies are gas. If you don't, we can critique them all we want to. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about them and to go through them and talk about what we loved and what we didn't love. It's okay for them not to be perfect. That's why we're here. But like, we can't go into these movies and expect them to be scientifically sound or to have every single argument be completely concise and solid. There's going to be little things that miss. There's going to be little things that we don't agree with. But at the end of the day, like when you watch these movies, you sit down and you watch but you watch a guy with his dead daughter walk across the desert, get mad at a god, and then kill him. You're not supposed to be there and be like, oh, he wouldn't do that. Shut up. He just did it. You're watching it happen. So it's happening. Now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to buy into it like you should do when you're playing a video game or watching a movie or reading a book or eating fruit? Or are you going to critique it so bad that you don't enjoy yourself? And that's what happens a lot of times too. We get so wrapped up into all the things that we don't get out of it that we don't enjoy these things. We walked into Thor, Love and Thunder, not knowing what was going to happen. And we get a very family friendly like movie. It's similar almost to Stranger Things in this retro 80s rock and roll, family friendly. I mean, there was a lot of blood and gore and cursing, but like, so what? People take their kids there all the time. If you suspend your disbelief and you walk in these movies and you buy into them, you will every time just about have a good time.
Awesome. That was a great take to end it. Thank you so much, Mac. Thank you so much, Eddie, for being with us. That's it for Thor 4. We have Ant-Man and Wakanda Forever coming this year. Everyone's excited. We'll see all with Lord of the Rings. What else coming?
It comes out. Wakanda Forever comes out November 22nd. We ain't seen a single trailer. We haven't seen a single still. I haven't seen any pictures. No one's leaked any set pictures. I haven't heard anything from any of the writers. I haven't seen a leak. I haven't read a single lick of leaked screenplay. Something is going on. Something's going on. Something's happening.
We'll find out. Thank you so much.